Can we please address the super chat? The one where the Russians need to capture prisoners for the media bin.
Okay.
They just need to
It
show
was actually
corpse.
relevant to what we were talking
Dead
about.
corpse.
Like,
Like in Soledar, dead corpse is enough. Why prisoners?
Because they need to convince the people at home that this is a just war. If you can convince the people at home that the enemy is surrendering, then you can convince them that this war is going well because you don't even have to fight the enemy. That's how just your cause is. And that's not the only reason. That's not the only reason, but that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, I don't think Russians are functioning like Americans.
It's Wagner there. I mean, in
can I
Soledar, they show some
Russia is not
prisoners,
losing
they
people
mainly
there.
show corpse. A lot of.
Can I try to get a point across that I tried to last week, but then RL cut me off and I never got to finish it. So, right. So this the hot war on the ground is actually just a sideshow. Russia isn't fighting Ukraine, even though it's in a hot war with Ukraine on the ground. Russia is fighting NATO, and it can't defeat NATO on the battlefield because every time Russia tries to escalate or it wins too much, NATO will just send more weapons. Eventually, they'll send more mercenaries, which are basically NATO soldiers that took off their uniform and decided to take up a gun and go to Ukraine. So Russia, as a country, cannot face down NATO on a military terms. So it's not going to want to win. If it tries to win, it will face pushback from the NATO countries, which will then have justification to get the guys to go on the ground. How Russia can defeat NATO is on the other war fronts: the financial, the diplomatic, and the political,
economical.
So on the financial side, what it's doing is it's setting up its own replacement system, right? Replacement financial system for SWIFT, for the banking, for credit cards, whatever. And for that to blossom, it needs time. It needs time for that to basically have more take up with the rest of the other economies of the world to take up that system. On the diplomatic side, it's already kind of war. Most of the world basically is not outside the West is either neutral or quietly not telling their citizens not to help Russia. Like China, for example. Yeah. There are reports of a lot of DJI drones on the ground because China's not stopping its suppliers from supplying stuff to Russia.
I'd argue it's a proxy war between China and NATO.
Well, I mean, it's China's benefit for both sides to continue to weaken themselves, and the aspect that really Europe, the only thing they could do to slow down Russia is self-inflicting. And so from third-party perspectives like China, maybe parties in the Middle East, over the world, possibly even the U.S., is to prolong the battle in order to weaken both sides.
Yeah, China is right now its self-interest is for Russia to be a shield for China, because China knows if Russia gets defeated, then China is next, because all the whole decades of propaganda against China has shown them this.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But here's the thing: if China's betting on Russia either being like the brunt force for all of NATO's attention, what happens if Russia ends up coming out on top and becoming a much more powerful economic power? And then
they're betting on Russia winning. They're betting that it's beneficial for both Russia and Europe to be further weakened. So if they could just allow the conflict to extend, then both Russia and Europe and the U.S. Eventually will be weakened. Really, everyone's being weakened, but relative to the level of how much pain can you handle, Europe and Russia are taking substantial amounts of pain. China's taking relatively little pain, and the more pain that is on both sides, Russia and Europe, to some extent benefits China and maybe India and other parties.
No, you see, China is
but
the
the
same
most
with Russia.
benefits
It wants time.
Maybe even
are
Israel.
going to the United States.
Yeah, China wants time because the current situation benefits China tremendously. Its main party is trying to put it down, which is the U.S., is being sucked into this conflict in Ukraine and doesn't really have time to deal with China. So, and China has grown economically very powerful in the last decades based on a peaceful world, which allows it to trade, and that's what China really wants. It wants to trade its way to become the world's preeminent economic power, not military power. China always wants to make more money. Yeah. So there are three outcomes right now. That one is Russia is defeated, one is a forever war, and the last one is Russia wins. So China will definitely want to prevent Russia from being defeated, because if Russia is defeated, then the entire West will basically gang up on China and use Russia against it. If
Russia
the
is
other two
defeated,
options are
doesn't
great.
that just end a nuclear war?
Russia cannot be defeated. Yes.
Yeah, both sides don't want a nuclear war. So
Yeah.
Depending on what the fate looks like.
China would be quite happy with the other two outcomes: a forever war, which continuously distracts the West, so China has time to develop, or Russia kind of wins, but at what cost? If it's if Russia is severely weakened in the process of winning, yeah, China is like, okay, come, let me help you, and then they have a kind of like a good friend in Russia after all of this, which is fine for it.
In the Silk Road Initiative, China could eventually move in and control the infrastructure of Central Europe. If Europe and if the war expands and Europe gets its infrastructure destroyed, that China could eventually come in and become the controller of Europe's infrastructure.
No.
Yeah.
No. This will not be China. This will be the United States of America. I am sorry.
The United States doesn't have the ability to build infrastructure. China actually has the ability.
Oh no! Are not the United States building the infrastructure of Iraq now?
No, I mean, unfortunately, the United States it hasn't built infrastructure.
Who is building the infrastructure of Iraq now?
China's the only place
they
that
spent $2 trillion in Iraq. Iraq is still a bombed up shit.
No, but
the $2 trillion never left the US. It's just a way for them to corruptly get money from the taxpayers to the companies.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid the U.S. doing it means that they're paying
whatnot.
Chinese people and just keeping U.S. people as the bosses of the company, but it's still the Chinese probably largely doing it.
Yeah, but
and do you think the United States will allow China to overtake Europe? I don't think.
Well, I don't think overtake. I don't think that they'll expand control. I don't mean that China's going to run the world, but I said China keeps on taking over more ports, rails, pipelines, various things that Europe's going to want someone to rebuild it, and China's the most likely candidate.
Doooovid, China has two ports, one airport in Europe now, and two ports. How many airports has United States in Europe?
Airports? You mean bases?
I mean bases with airports.
Many.
China has one in Spain.
Yeah, but airports may not be. I mean, there's different parts of the infrastructure. But say that that China conceivably benefits from a long, drawn out, unescalated war that continues to weaken Europe and both Russia.
Yeah,
China's military isn't set up to project power either.
Isn't a fair comparison, because the objectives of each of these countries are very different. So the U.S. wants political control. It wants the Western Europeans to be dependent on the U.S., whereas China doesn't care about political control.
Sorry, Drew. Sorry, who is selling now liquefied gas to Europe?
The U.S. That's what I said. The U.S. wants.
Who is making money? Who is selling weapons to the European?
You're repeating my point. You're repeating my point. So let me actually finish my point. So the two parties want different things. The U.S. wants political control, but China doesn't want political control. It's going to want the infrastructure and some control of it for its Belt and Road Initiative, so they can funnel supplies into China. It doesn't want to control the particular country. You see, that's why you look at all their agreements with the various foreign countries. China's agreements are all at the infrastructure level, the industrial level, never at the political level, because they don't want that. So it's a different objective. So when you compare the number of bases and all this, it's not quite a relevant comparison, because it's a different objective altogether.
You are
Yes.
right.
Drew,
You are right.
Drew. For me, in my point of view, the Russians have already won the economic and financial war. That war began in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, but more because of MH17 story.
Yeah,
They got
there's a stage
sanctioned.
2 to this.
They got sanctioned, and the Russians adapted. And now we see the 10th package of sanctions by the Europeans because it's not working. It's not working.
It's an ongoing war because the next step in this war is de-dollarization, basically. So for them
it's
to
like de-dollarization and de-eurozone, because also euro money is not usable by Russian. It's just a bonus. It's just a
no,
bonus for Russian.
because
I mean,
the only way to basically stop the US from having hegemonic power is to attack the dollar by de-dollarization and causing hyperinflation in the US. You
that
actually remove the power
de-dollarization is going naturally thanks to sanctions. I mean,
yes. So they shot themselves in the foot. Yeah.
Russians can't use US dollars and euro because of sanctions. So, and as Russia is one of the biggest provider of natural resources.
Well, Russia is only one country in the world when we talk about de-dollarization.
But all the exchange that Russia is making with India, with China, with other countries who are buying LNGs and things like that, are doing in currency that is not US dollars, because Russians can't do anything with that dollars. There are sanctions.
Yes, but Russia is just one country.
So for them, de-dollarization for Russia it's a dumb deal.
Yes, but for them to win against NATO, the de-dollarization cannot just happen in Russia. It has to. The dollar needs to be removed as a reserve currency of the world.
For Russia to win against NATO, it must be on the ground. That's why they are waiting for. Yes, they can.
Russia cannot beat
yes, they
NATO,
can.
and NATO cannot beat Russia because they are both nuclear powers.
That's
Once one of them is going to be defeated, the other one will nuke it.
No, not if it happened in Ukraine. Not if it happened in Ukraine. That's why they are waiting for those Leopard tank, for those Challenger 2, for those Bradleys, for those Abrams. And look what happened in the military-industrial complex in Europe. They don't have any more tanks. They don't have any more shells. I mean, it's finished. Now Russia is taking the claws and the teeth of NATO. So they can't make any more problem in the rest of the world, especially in Africa, where you see Wagner also in some African countries, and in the rest of the world, and that's very good for China. So yes, China want the fight going on, but they want especially Russia to win, no matter if Russia is is bleeded or not. Doesn't matter. It's NATO who need to be bleeded, because it's NATO who is a challenge for China.
I think that is a little bit short term in terms of thinking, because right now we're only in the first year of the war. If NATO really wanted to fight Russia and it got its act together and actually put its economies on on a war footing and started producing, converting its factories to weapons production, there's no way Russia can win.
What factory are you talking about? What factory are you talking about?
You can always build new factories. So you have, if you look at what happened in World War II,
how many years to build a production line of
very
tanks?
fast. So for example, if you look at World War II,
not in
beyond
Europe.
what's happening in Ukraine for something like that to happen. They're not going to invest in that infrastructure without having a reason to, beyond people are dying in Ukraine.
And the reality is that you don't have to build it in Europe. You see, you can build it in United States, because if you look at World War II, United States did not enter war. Did not enter war in the first 2 years, if I'm not wrong. The war in Europe started quite early, and then United States had been standing by the sideline. So the things have been developing for some time until until United States felt that it's good enough. Then they start to enter the war. So we are now like what was said by I think Drew, right? We're still in the first year. It's still early days. If you talk about a major world war, right? We're just in the beginning. We are just in the Czechoslovakia, maybe the Poland stage. Still early days.
With the
bring that point back to China, though. The U.S. is not doing that well.
The economic data are not anymore the same as in 1940s. I mean, European
U.S. manufacture depends on a global supply chain that's largely based on China. So, I mean, the U.S. supply chain is keep on being depleted within the United States. We're at lowest levels of trust, efficiency. I mean, there's some levels of ability, but it's unclear that the U.S. would be able to pull ourselves together like we did World War II.
Where
and then you mentioned the globalized supply chain. What role does China play in the ability of the U.S. to manufacture like that?
What would be
Europe cannot anymore build factories to manufacture weapons because they need raw materials, because Europe is depleted. They need Africa.
The U.S. has the raw materials.
It's slipping through their hands.
The advantage the U.S. has is the raw materials, like Wyatt was saying, like, could the U.S. actually pull it off? And does the U.S., so to say, need China to pull it off based on the current structure of manufacture in America?
Yes, in 1942, in 1940s, United States wasn't in big debt like today.
They were in the Great Depression, right? They're still in the Great Depression at the beginning of the World War II.
Well, we didn't also have a globalized supply chain.
They were ascending out of it, and then
World War II, it wasn't a global they were on a rising in economic. I mean, at the end of the Second World War, United States was 45% of the industrial capacities of the entire world, and today it's not the same metric.
Well, okay, let's
the same metric at all.
Let's talk about a little bit of a doomsday scenario, right? So the U.S. right is facing a defeated war in Ukraine, and it's already put in the propaganda work to make its guys think that Russia next step is going to invade the U.S. and Western Europe. So it needs to go save its allies there. What is it going to do? It's going to just say, okay, we're going to forget all the debt that are there. I'm just going to cancel all of it. I don't care. These African countries that have the raw materials that I need to build my weapons, there's an aircraft carrier parked outside there. You either give me the raw materials or I'm going to bomb the shit out of you. It still has the largest military in the world. I'm not saying that the US is going to have an easy time to do this, but I'm saying it can. And given a few years, and a few years is a lot longer than what Russia needs to basically steamroll anybody in Europe or the US.
I want to highlight.
There is a capability for them to do
it. Drew.
I want to highlight.
You have other actors in the world stage. You have Russia who already send Wagner. They can send anti-ship missiles. China can send anti-ship missiles. They are very effective, not very costly. It can do tremendous damage.
In the situation where Drew is talking about, the whole world, global air traffic, everything will be all doomed. Will be all in the grinding halt. United States will decide whose ship can pass. So you're talking about anti-ship missiles. It's not so easy to be transferred in a World War situation. On top of that, I want to also highlight how drastic United States can industrialize. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, they believed that the moment if they bomb the aircraft carrier and the battleship, United States will be out of the war for good. That's what they thought. When at the end of World War II, there is 20 times more aircraft carriers than they were at least. They are building one aircraft carrier every month or something like this. One battleship every 2 weeks. The industrialization, and nobody can imagine the kind of level of war manufacturing. But it happened in World War II in a scale that in history I have never seen before. Okay, and I don't underestimate the possibility of that happening.
Yeah, I'm here in Metro Detroit. And if you want to argue this point, like Ford had the River Rouge plant where every single aspect of the automobile was built under one roof, and they switched to making bombers. The situation is different now in the sense that the supply chain is globalized. There's not a single, I mean, there's some, but almost everything made in America comes from a global supply chain that, I mean, conceivably, it would be. But the structure of World War II, where you had everything built locally in the U.S. from raw material refinement to manufacture to finished product, that doesn't exist anymore, and it's unclear that we would be able to recreate that.
But my point is that this is peacetime.
Vaun wants to say something.
Especially with the level of technology.
I think the
the role of China in that,
and more impossibilities.
Vaun is actually being quite patiently waiting here and holding his finger like a good little schoolboy. So please, Vaun, you had something on your mind.
All I was going to say is the problem with the United States is the political atmosphere is where you're going to get the delays in the industrialization. I mean, once we industrialize like that, yeah, it's going to be insane because, I believe there was one factory that was making 425 B-25s a month. That's just one factory. So we have to get to that point. The advantage Russia has right now, and to some extent China is they were sanctioned years ago, so they've already started going in that direction. So they do have a head start, and they do have some advantages right now. Then you have a weak administration. So the iron's hot for them to make their moves. But if the United States, let's say realistically, nothing's going to probably change till 2024 election. So let's say from the 2024 that point on, and they start a massive industrialization, like when Trump did like $750 billion in, defense spending, something like that. It's still going to take years just to get the factories built or expand that stuff. So, I mean, we could get to that point and overtake Russia and be back where we were at World War II. But I just think it's going to take some time. And in the meantime, we're already behind Russia and China, and they're already, they've already decided years ago to go in that direction. So they're ahead of us. We could catch up if we had someone serious in there, but I just don't see anything changing drastically like that for probably 2 to 3 years. So, I mean, Russia will have almost a decade a head start as far as going towards a more war economy or self-sustaining economy. I mean, they've been.
There's a problem. There's two problems. There's two problems. If America's going to industrialize, okay, one, the technology that we used to industrialize during World War II is not even close to the same technology that we have today. You're going to need microprocessors. You're going to need the most precision-created technology you can imagine. And Vaun covered that. It's going to take years to develop that here. Two, there's another problem you guys aren't talking about. My generation is going to be the one manning those factories. I know one person. I know one person. One person that is in a trade. Every other person I know is either a psychology major or a business major. No one wants to do actual work.
Yeah, what they want doesn't matter anymore, Alan.
Yeah, expertise will know how.
You
the expertise will know how it's not here.
Hold on the idea.
Drew. All engineering schools in the United States are like 50% Asian. So like even if it did come to happen and the U.S. was going to do it, it would.
You guys are saying we won't have a choice. Who's going to force us?
You're going to want to do it because
well, even if we wanted to do it, I don't think we can.
For your family and your head.
We have to be accepting and diverse. And I'm telling you, we can't do it. And if we could do it, it's going to be because of Chinese engineers in the U.S.
No, okay. Let me establish my stance here. China is way ahead in terms of industrialization of the U.S. and it has far better supply chains right now than the U.S. So if this kind of industrialization war kicks off, China has a vast advantage over the U.S. definitely, and he has got 5 times more population. Definitely. So
what are you talking about? I'm sorry. Look how the military of the United States look like. America is investing $800 billion every year in his military.
Okay.
Even our military equipment, a lot of those components are made in Korea and China. Like the flat screens in our airplanes, we don't even know how that stuff's made. That stuff's made in Korea.
Let me throw in an interesting number. I'm going to throw in some interesting numbers.
Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? Like even our military components, part of it's made in China.
David, please, one moment. So we should put something into perspective when we're thinking about the United States and China. So the United States spends about $2,500 per capita. If you take the entire defense spending and divide it by the population per capita, is about 2,500, which is not the highest, but it is among the highest in the world. Norway, actually, the most peaceful, loving country. Yeah. Well, actually, we are around 1,500. I'm going by memory here. Okay, so where's Russia, which is at war, right? Well, Russia is not even clocking 500. They're barely under 500 per person. That's a budget. How much you're squeezing per person there, right? So now where's China? China doesn't even near 200. It's 100 and something. I don't remember 50 or 70. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. What matters is that they've actually per capita lowered their defense spending. They haven't increased it. Yes, in absolute terms, it has increased in proportion to their economic increase, but their defense budget is actually lower. So like China has the industry, and it can definitely kick it up higher. But I have one question for you.
Coping thing, you forget one major important things. It's the cost of living and the cost to manufacture things. I mean, $100 in China and $100 in United States, you don't get the same thing.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
That's why the military budget. That's why the military budget of China is in par with United States in terms of real value. That's why you can explain factually how China can build a navy in very short period of time, which is now bigger in number of vessels than United States.
Right, but in the event of the war,
one thing I just want to touch on. Yes, the Chinese
and
Navy
the same
has
apply
more
to Russia.
They have more vessels, but that does not mean they're physically stronger. They have more patrol boats and destroyers. They're not missile cruisers. They're not. They don't have the firepower.
Just wait 10 to 20 years and you will see
that yes.
The US will not wait 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. I want to share.
China has a defensive navy.
They will not allow China to get stronger.
Yeah,
it's
China's everything. All its weapons are defensive. It doesn't have many aircraft carriers because it's not trying to project its power across the world. It's trying to defend the shoreline.
A battle of power. We're talking about the global supply chain, and even if you say, well, of course, the U.S. is way more powerful in the overall perspective, still the supply chain is global, and the U.S. is insufficient in our manufacturing processes without the Chinese aspect of the supply chain and what they call the reverse Flynn effect. People are getting dumber, expertise is decreasing, and Americans are not, God forbid, as innovative and talented as we were in the time of World War II. And I'm an engineer. I went to University of Michigan. It's 25% Chinese. Harvard is purposely keeping Chinese people out, even though they score better on tests. I don't know if anyone went to an elite school in the United States. Most of the engineering schools are over 50% Asian foreign students.
Don't blame us.
The U.S. manufacturing base is built upon foreign Asian labor.
Dude, we blame our parents.
Where's the problem? The United States always built their industry on the foreign. They built the industry after the Second World War with Germans and other guys that they took from Europe. They always
a long time ago. Like that's not the current state of things.
Germans industries.
You just affirmed that the United States is building their industries on the foreign students. They always done like this.
But now that it's not Germans, it's far.
Now they are Chinese.
And what about the global supply chain? I mean, like economically, it's been
It's not clear for you that the United States is controlling the chains of supplies. It's not clear. This is not clear for you.
I'm talking about it's global. Corporations are global. They might be registered in the United States, and China's a large actor in U.S. power.
Okay.
I want to share. You have to put into perspective. We are now talking. We are trying to use peacetime economy to compare military production. It is not accurate at all. You have to look at the potential. If it's like during the British Empire, right? They have the problem because they do have a stretched supply chain, which is why, right, in wartime they struggle to do their manufacturing. United States don't have this problem because they have all the resources at home. So which is why they can be a superpower, which is why Russia can be a superpower because they have all the resources at home. And you cannot underestimate the power of a war situation where even the most stupidest people, right? You have a very stupid population. They can be mobilized in a war situation into something very productive. Like you have to imagine what United States have in the beginning of World War II. Shitty tanks, shitty planes, everything is shitty. They only have a decent navy.
Do not attack my M2 light tanks, man.
Alan, why just call your entire generation shitty people? I don't think.
Be realistic about the difference in technology then and today.
Exactly.
And the role
but if you look at the beginning of World War II, I agree that the technology, but you have to imagine the technology at that time was very advanced to the people then as well. To create an aircraft carrier, how difficult is that? How advanced it is during that time, to create the battleship, to create the aerodynamics, to create a modern fighter jet at that time in World War II, that is advanced to them. Those engineering that you need to do, the gears and the whatever engine, the turbines, is high tech at that time. Right now, we think that all this shit that we have is high tech.
Built by Germans.
Can someone verify? I'm an engineer. I'm not a military guy. My understanding is the flat screens in the fighter jets in the U.S. are made in either Korea and China, and we don't know how they do it, and they won't tell us how they do it.
That's bullshit. We made glass for our jet fighters in Korea and Vietnam, so I'm sure we can make fucking glass again.
Yeah, you're sure you can.
I am sure.
I'm pretty sure that's the current state of reality.
I am also sure United States could make cars again if they want.
Yeah. We could make America great again.
We could make cars with the global supply chain that depends on China.
You just need Trump.
No. Tesla have the entire factory in United States. So making cars definitely is not a problem.
They have final assembly. No, they just have final assembly. They don't make all of the components. If you look at all the components that go into the car, but if you look at Tesla, if Tesla had to make every single component that went into the car, it's not sure that they would be able to do it.
No, the point is they have the ability to build an entire factory from scratch. You see, they go to China, they can build an entire Tesla factory, a gigafactory.
Right, that's just final assembly plant. It's not every single component that goes into the car.
Yes, every component. The United States
Alan just
can do every component that it needs to be done in this world at that time. Please be aware of that. United States is capable to do everything.
In your dreams and our dreams. I'm in the United States. I say in our dreams. I'm an engineer here in Metro Detroit. Check my YouTube channel. I go to engineering conferences every few months, like in our dreams. I mean, you're not even U.S. citizens. You're just
Russia is producing more engineers each year than United States.
It's a bit
United States is compensating that by importing Chinese and Indian engineers.
It's a bit ironic. The guys outside the US, we have this impression that we think that the US people are actually going to be up to the task when push comes to shove. We have such a high perception of the US industrial capability, whereas the people in the United States right now, David, Alan, and Vaun are all saying that you guys can't step up to the plate. So it's kind of a bit.
Yeah, well, corporations are headquartered here in the sense that we financially manage it. The exchanges are here.
Yes,
but
the United States never done something by their own. They always
you probably have to conscript people to work in the factories.
Yeah,
they wouldn't know how to do it. I mean, you can't conscript people and train them how to do it.
Everybody other than the natives are immigrants. All of them.
Yeah, but that's normal in the United States. This is always
a whole bunch of fresh bodies, right?
Yes, it's always like that. That's why.
That's the secret. They are
we're talking guys like Drew, RL, and Wyatt, and we're saying you're going to make this stuff for us here in the U.S. because we're paying you more than you get in China. It is saying that because God forbid Vaun and Alan, they're not going to do it. And so they go, we're going to do it because
I
the
have
ROU
my
are going to come to
I
the
have
US
my
and
company
do it for us.
Why would I do that?
Now they are not
no,
going
no,
to
no,
do
no,
it.
no, no, no,
Why
no.
not?
I got two
like
jobs,
David,
motherfucker.
when it comes
Yeah,
to a
it's
war
like
footing, it's not about
listen,
money anymore.
listen.
The
It's
money
like
doesn't
no,
cut it
listen,
doesn't matter anymore.
No,
There
no,
wouldn't be even
it
jobs.
matters. It's
Yeah,
like
there won't be jobs.
no,
They're just told to do it.
Listen, it's like comparing a Porsche 911 Turbo S to a Dodge Hellcat. Yeah, and the American military is more like a Porsche 911 than a Dodge Hellcat. A Dodge Hellcat, it's not very particular way, very technological and stuff like that. So American can produce them, no problem. It's very powerful. Most of the airplanes at the Second World War from Americans were like a Hellcat. Not very aerodynamics. Just one exception was the Mustang P-51. All the other planes were aerodynamically speaking shit, but they had huge, powerful engine, and that's it. They got all the oil they wanted to feed those planes. Look at the bombers.
T-52 shell will kill you just the same as an Abrams shell.
Not today. Not today.
No, today.
Today it's very technological.
Today you will die the same. From a T-52
No, today
Everything has chips in it. Today there's you can't even get a
American
device that doesn't
equipment.
have a
Let
chip
me
in it.
finish my point, please. Today, American equipment is top of the line, and top of the line. I'm sorry.
Because that's the profit motive.
That's United States business. They decided to do it like that, to be to be the number one in technology. And now the stuff they have, they can't mass produce it. Simple as that. It's impossible to mass produce a so well technological advanced stuff.
No, it doesn't mean
not
they can't go back to
possible.
mass production.
I am not
What about
agreeing
Biden
with
and
you,
his
Aral.
semiconductor war with China? I mean, you
I'm not talking about, and I'm not talking about the maintenance cost and the reliability of having something which is top of the line. Just look at the F-35, all the problems it has.
How many factories make F-35 parts, guys? You guys know about the United States so much. How many factories are there that make the extremely complex parts for the F-35?
No, you see the
point here, almost all United States.
Wow.
The point here is that the point here is that if push comes to shove, you're not going to be making 500 F-35s. You're going to have basically you're going to design a new plane that can be mass produced. Just like
we'll do something like the F-30. We'll do something like the F-15, right? A very simple, very rugged aircraft.
Very simple.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Are there F-15s still being produced today?
No, but it's good. Like were there aircraft carriers being produced, at the start of World War II?
Yeah, I mean, God forbid, like,
Okay, well,
I love the United States. Fantasy, then our infrastructure is crumbling. Can you remember the Surfside building collapse? Like, our roads here, like, I'm in Detroit, Michigan, our roads are horrible. Our infrastructure has like a D- rating across the United States. And saying, like, to some extent, yeah, we could do certain things, but like relatively, the U.S. is not in a manufacturing strength position. Our infrastructure is the worst that it's been in 100 years.
I have a question for all of you.
Wait, Vaun had something to say.
I was just going to say on the F-15, I think we still make them, but they're the F-15X or EX, or they're taking old F-15Es and refurbishing them. But that's an aircraft that they have in inventory that they probably still have the factory for, since they're refurbishing them into the newer. That's something they can mass produce, and that thing carries like they say it's better than the F-22 because it carries like fucking 16 AMRAAMs. Yeah, and it's got like a badass radar. I mean, for something like that, it's perfect for just doing mid cap or.
I heard it's like a good combination with F-35. So the F-35s will do the target tracking, and then they will lock the target. The F-15 just fire.
Yeah, like the F-2.
Let us keep one thing in mind, though. This is sort of peacetime. Isn't it still peacetime? And it's over 50% of the federal budget already spent. So I had a question for all of you. Considering all the domestic issues the United States have, whether you think the United States can rapidly industrialize and so forth, how are they going to do it? Because in the scenario of the war, de-dollarization is a de facto thing. Then it suddenly becomes like a split bifurcation, which will affect the U.S. economy. Maybe not hyperinflation, but how are they going to push up to even more? Because they cannot even maintain their inner thing. They have so much corruption going on. How are they going to suddenly give up their money? Well, I would think maybe multiple Wagner-like groups, maybe like Mozart groups or whatever you want to call them. Maybe that could be the thing, but that doesn't seem to be something to actually to.
It would be private corporations. I mean, the U.S. government couldn't do it. There's certain private corporations, Lockheed Martin, maybe Tesla.
Right. How would they circumvent their predicament? Because by all metrics that they utilize to maintain power through the financial system, they are so stretched that if they get dollarized, they have no limit there. So they cannot actually mobilize more financially speaking. Of course, there are other ways to go around it, but like you guys were talking about,
it wouldn't be the U.S. government. It would be private corporations that would do it because the U.S. government would either fund
the thing is that the private corporations are still operating within the same system. The private corporations are no different from the public ones. Like the private sector in the United States is so merged with the public sector. It's a meaningless term almost. And when you look at whether it's private or public, they still operate with the same incentive structure and the same financial structure and everything else that everyone has to deal with.
No, I mean, there's competency in the private sector, in the corporations.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because the
metrics is largely made up of the rejects of the corporate sector. Like shadow government, and to some extent.
No, it's because they are merged. The private and the public sector are merged.
They're merged in the
sense.
That's
why you have the revolving. That's why you have the revolving door between public officials on high centers. That's why you have CEOs from the web arms industry suddenly getting ministerial positions in the defense industry.
Yeah, but it's the revolving door. You work a few years in government, make a few $100,000 a year, and then the corporate world, you could make millions, hundreds of millions, billions.
And so you see where both of the most concentrated
the government
of
is
power
just a stepping stone to the corporate
world. Is the tool of the corporations and vice versa. They are a team because they have all the same incentive structures. They operate with the same kind of incentive. The difference is that the corporations have the financial authority, whereas the government has the political authority where it pertains to war. But this is also blurred in the United States because you have the biggest private arms industry in the world. Right?
It's adversarial and check and balance.
So my friend,
the point is that we have to still consider
be able to work together
the situation in peacetime. And my question to all of you is, how do you expect the United States to be able to? How do you expect to all of you? I'll ask you a question now. How do you expect actually the United States to be able to mobilize? Like, what would that look like? How would it be issuing $1 trillion of bonds or something? Like,
we don't know. We don't know.
And her two moms.
No, you see, Kope, you are actually trying to analyze the wartime economy based on the peacetime, right? What will happen when push comes to shove is your government is just going to put in emergency wartime laws that say, okay, Lockheed Martin now belongs to the U.S. government, and then all the engineers now work for the U.S. government, and money doesn't become is no longer a thing anymore. Whatever debts or whatever things it owes, it doesn't matter anymore. The whole financial system breaks down. There is no more, that is a wartime economy where everybody works for the purpose of manufacturing.
2 years ago, right?
Look at Second World War in United States. I mean, private companies were never nationalized.
Yeah,
because they got a huge amount of money to build.
They didn't also get a choice.
You never got to that point.
They would contract it out to the private company, and the public at large would suffer. Like there would be a multi-trillion-dollar spending package that the U.S. citizens across the board would have to pay for, and that would be privately contracted to a company like Lockheed Martin.
Because if you just look at 2 years ago, right, how they do the vaccine. So Donald Trump have the ability, the power to and nationalize the company or even fine them or punish them if they do not follow what the government tell them to do. So just that they never come to that because all the companies immediately just volunteer to help, and then they started to do all the research and do all the production. So the same thing will happen and you see how fast they do the vaccine. I was amazed how fast they are able to produce.
They contracted that out.
How much vaccine they produce is ridiculous. I thought they would never be.
The difference is they didn't take over the process. They contracted out the process.
If I'm listening to you all, and if I would be Chinese, and I will take you as decisive, then I will attack US tomorrow.
You can't, because China
will never attack the US.
Because the United States can do nothing. United States can do nothing. They are stupid, and they have no capacities. They have nothing to do with this war. They can do nothing by their own.
They attack the U.S. through disruption of the supply chain. China's not going to use a military attack.
If I would be Chinese, I would attack them tomorrow.
No, you are not Chinese.
You're not Chinese.
Fortunately.
You are definitely not Chinese.
Stop all the manufacturing of the US, and one day we all go, oh, hang on,
China,
we can't make anything.
China got a guy named Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
Yes.
If you have an opponent that is stupid, let him be stupid. It's more interesting for you than fighting him.
So you really think Americans are stupid?
It's serious, man.
Do you really think Americans are stupid?
Yes, I think.
They are the biggest power in this world, my friend.
Yeah, maybe
No,
Chinese have
you are
higher
living,
No,
you are living
not
your
anymore.
lives
Not
because
anymore.
US
But
want
I
to
told
live.
many times their GDP is a fluff.
Chinese
my
people have
friend.
higher
GDP is
IQs
a
on
fluff.
average than the average American.
The first economy on the world today is China. It's not the United States.
No,
I mean, there's
friend.
different aspects. There's
China
different
is
aspects that
allowed
China
to
has
be.
superior in some aspects. Other
China
countries have
is
superior
allowed
in other
to be
aspects.
what it is.
You can't
by
put
the
it like one up,
Americans.
one better than
Number
the other.
one.
Because
China
there's
is
multiple
number one,
factors
actually.
that are unequal.
Chinese people are not smarter than US people. Okay,
They have a higher average
we have been
IQ.
forced since birth to study hard, work hard, become engineers, doctors, and lawyers by our parents. That's why we are. It's an Asian culture. It's more family oriented. It's all about being productive in your life and respecting your elders and family oriented.
Please, my friends, quit this opinion that Americans are stupid.
Not a
they are not stupid. They are very intelligent.
Okay,
and they are very capable.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Bjorn, we can hear you.
Okay, can I have one saying here?
I wanted to say one quick thing.
Okay, I come after you then.
Okay, Dracu, here's the thing. You say these things, like, I need to understand, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the politicians? Are you talking about the generations upcoming? Are you talking about the current working class? Who are you talking about when you say Americans are not stupid or X is not stupid?
I'm talking about the American people, American nation. I'm talking about all Americans.
You, Alan, you're talking about you.
Yeah, he's talking about you, Alan.
They are not stupid. I'm talking about you. Yes, I'm talking about everyone which is living in America. Americans are
multicultural
society made up of a
whole bunch of different people.
It's because he's Belarusian, not American. That's why he's smart.
Vaun is smart. Vaun is very American.
It's very heartwarming to hear you send compliments to each other like that.
I mean, you can go and bomb Romania. There's a bunch of factors in the U.S. that are in conflict with each other.
You can just cut in here. It's your turn. Just cut in.
Go
ahead, Bjorn. Sorry.
No, David.
I've been waiting now. So, I think that's a very interesting question, because if we don't know the answer to that question, if things are much worse than we can see, it's this option of nuclear warfare. Because if NATO and USA are much more desperate than it seems, and they will know this before we do, I think the chance of nuclear warfare is much more higher than we actually think. So I think we should start discussing more about this nuclear warfare thing. Because, for example, the sanctions. Now we can see after 1 year, after these sanctions that was supposed to bring Russia down, it doesn't work. After 1 year, it doesn't work. Everything goes good with Russia, and you see actually that USA and the West is actually having problems now, economic problems. And you see the BRICS cooperation, they're starting to trade oil without the dollar, and you see this development. And if, as I said last time, and this is my main message to you all, is that if things are much more desperate than we can see even, the chance of nuclear warfare could be extremely high.
Does anyone hear that?
Yes, that's Bjorn.
Yes, I'm hearing too.
Oh,
that's Bjorn.
Okay.
Yeah, Bjorn's mic is a bit special.
In the case of nuclear exchange, I think Russia is the most prepared of all.
In case of nuclear exchange, everybody run towards the mountain. You'll be fine.
Everybody's losing.
I just want.
Everybody's dead.
I don't think there will be a nuclear war. That's my opinion. It's just no point. There's no point to a nuclear war because if you go to war, you fight for a purpose, a reason to do it. Unless you are terrorists, like the Islamic State.
America is a terrorist nation.
I agree. Yeah, America, the U.S. right now is behaving like a terrorist state.
Government.
Going around evading.
Government.
U.S. government. U.S. government. Not Alan.
Yes,
not
but
Vaun.
I like all these people around here telling me about America. Don't even live in America.
Vaun, you know what we got to do right now.
Tell me about America. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you a little something about Romania. Or where are you from, Draco?
Yeah, please.
I don't know nothing. I'm also gonna make something up.
What's Romania?
The only thing I know about Romania is
What's
Andrew
Romania?
Tate.
Vampires.
What is Romania?
The vampire people.
The only thing we know about Romania is Andrew Tate.
Oh yeah, Top G. Hey, let that motherfucker go.
Andrew Tate?
What are you doing over there?
You know,
instead of attacking America, we should be attacking Draco for illegally holding Top G. Yeah, Draco, what's up with that? What's up with that? What's up with the Romanian people? Y'all got to keep Top G locked up. What's up?
Sucking blood. We are sucking blood.
I think go back to the US being.
What was my point? My point was that you all think it's supposed that you all think that Americans are stupid, but they are not stupid, my friend. They are highly intelligent.
I live with
they
a lot of
won
really
the second
No.
war.
A lot of them. I'm an American. I tell you, most of us are pretty stupid.
I mean,
yeah. Okay. Let me.
I'm just speaking like at least. I mean, all due respect to Alan, he's the exception, and maybe it's because he's Belarusian. But the Zoomers are idiots, man. I mean,
please, yes. Let me make
JS, don't you worry.
Because
Norwegians are generally quite stupid.
America was winning the Second World War. After the Second World War, the whole American industry, whole American economy was rising like the sun in Japan is rising, So, and now you are the leader of the world, military.
That's a long time ago. Those people aren't even alive anymore. Most of those people aren't even alive anymore. And God forbid, the smartest people in the United States are Asian immigrants.
Without the people that
the
smartest people today in the United States are Asian immigrants.
Like, is Biden even sentient?
Okay.
Even if it's the Asian immigrants, they're still Americans.
Okay.
That's my
point.
So
Americans are stupid.
But
God forbid, World War II, we put Asian immigrants in camps.
Americans always
God forbid, it could come like that with Chinese in America also.
We put Sulu from Star Trek.
Doooovid, you are an immigrant. You are an immigrant to the United States. Everyone in America is an immigrant.
Yeah, but immigrants that came in the last 50 years.
You are not Indian.
Yeah, but my ancestors have been here for 100 years. The Asians are just coming in the last few decades.
Asian were there before.
Either way, there's no unified United States. There's
were building Los Angeles.
There's conflicting interest in the United States. Sometimes we work together, very rarely. And the capitalist
you're Jewish, right? The Jews, you guys are really good at working together.
Well, we work against each other in a way, but the system works in the capitalistic, like Adam Smith, even though we work against each other, that causes the beneficial outcome for the United States. And it's unclear how long that system's lasting. He's talking about the infrastructure. I'm an engineer. Our infrastructure.
Now it's unclear. Now I can tell you how long it will last. It will last forever.
I mean, I wish I had your optimism. Like, God forbid, none of the people here in the U.S. have your optimism.
United States is the imperium. Is the most powerful country in the world.
You should tell that to Rome.
A declining imperium.
You should tell that to Rome.
I mean,
I think the survey
forever.
The last survey, like 40% of Americans think that there might be some form of balkanization. God forbid, I mean,
United States would last 300 years maximum.
Yeah.
I have a different answer for that.
They have now 50 years behind. So
I think the United States
from now on is okay.
Yeah, the thing is when you talk to Americans and you ask them, the response is always, I love and I'm very proud of the United States, but I'm sad for what it is doing to itself right now. That is so. I think the United States will last as long as the propaganda lasts, because the United States is very good at propagandizing.
I'm agreeing with you, but what specific type of propaganda are you talking about?
I love the United States kind of propaganda. You see, the United States is all immigrants that moved there to have a better life. And then these immigrants have children, and all their children are taught to love the United States, not where they came from. It's this propaganda, internal propaganda, that made you guys all love the country that you're from. And the love is real. I mean, you talk to Dan, he's living in Russia, but you ask him, do you love the United States? He says, yes. You know? So as long as the propaganda continues,
but there's an element of truth that the reason that propaganda is effective, though, isn't there like a truth behind it, though, that at one point, at least, like I'm a son of immigrants. I'm the first generation American. My parents were born in Europe.
Do you love the United States?
I did.
Are you a proud American?
I'm a lot less proud than I once was. Let's put it that way. I loved what America was.
JS. So answer the question. Do you love America?
I love America. Fuck yeah. America. Fuck yeah. I love America.
Yeah, but we have a system
and I drive a pickup truck.
We have a system of competition, not cooperation. Like even the Americans on the panel, we have a system that works and stays together, but it's more based on competition, not cooperation.
Yeah, but as long as that whole general feeling exists, I think America will hold together.
You are not socialist.
Well, the thing about America now is like it used to be that Americans were predominantly of European. All the immigrants were European, like the people who built the United States, the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence that created the Constitution of the United States. They were all Europeans, right? There was no one. There was no Mexicans. There was no Native Americans, Comanches. There was no Africans that signed the Declaration of Independence. Every single one of them was a European. Now the majority of America is not European anymore. So America doesn't have any sense of itself anymore. We're broken up linguistically, racially, religiously. There's no commonality among Americans anymore. It's an illusion.
It doesn't
fit that. In Australia as well.
Vaun, you're muted. You're muted, Vaun.
Can I respond to JS on that point?
Well, Vaun was going to respond first.
I was just going to say what Drew was saying about kids being raised like when I was raised, it was raised to be patriotic and stuff, and JS and my dad and now. And as we've gotten to these other generations, it's shit on America more, shit on the past, shit on the patriotism. And I think that's why you're starting to see that.
Tear down the statues.
Yeah, you're seeing that, and that's where you're seeing the diversion of America, where people like me are like, yeah, I mean, I love my country and I'm proud of my country, but I'm also ashamed of some of the stuff they're doing because I'm aware of it. And at the same time, the people that are coming after me are just like, well, fuck it. It's so fucked up. Just let it be shit. They don't want to do anything to fix it or try to save it or get back on the right track. So it's just kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy now. It's just going downhill because each generation, I mean,
it's already a multicultural
family. They hate religion. They hate
by the reins and get my generation to do shit. I would gladly do it. I just don't even know where to begin. That's the problem.
And it's not,
let me share a few.
At this point, America is a multicultural experiment that's either going to fail or succeed. So what America was versus the multicultural experiment we currently are.
Let me share a few.
Diversity is not a strength.
Drew,
you can look at Israel and
Diversity plus proximity equals conflict.
One by one.
Let me share.
You could have ethnic diversity as long as you have people that are all on the same page, buying into the same thing. Like in Russia, it may be authoritarian, but from Siberia to Moscow, apparently they all buy into that.
And Russia is not monocultural either. So
that's actually
multicultural.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, there's gradients of diversity.
Russia, it's multicultural, man.
It's not like
I mean, you've got.
you don't have anything in common.
I'm trying, but I okay. Let me try to improve your spirits here, JS, about the differences that you see. Okay, I think I'm sure if I say if I'm wrong, you can correct me here. Everybody here thinks China just speaks one language, but that's not true.
No, we know China doesn't speak one language. You know how many languages are spoken in New York City? Do you know how many languages are spoken in New York City?
300 living languages in China. 300.
Yeah. You know how many are spoken just in New York?
There are 200
from immigration
groups in China.
Yeah, well, that's everything's from immigration. There's 118 languages spoken just in the city of New York.
But his point is that the multiculturalism argument doesn't really stand on much strong feet. It's more the national identity that matters.
It's about the social discourse as to whether they're pitting each other against different cultures, right?
The most important thing with the nation is when the nation has the common interest.
Problems you can solve.
This is very important.
Well, the U.S. system is based on competition. Our cooperation is a competitive cooperation, and America still might work, but we never cooperate. We cooperate through internal competition. That's the way the system was set up: checks and balances, free market capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, may I throw one thing in here that actually fits quite well? My own cousin, who is born and raised in the United States. Hold on, Joker. I'm going to be short. So I have a cousin who was born and raised in the United States. His father is Norwegian. His mother is from Peru. So neither parent was born in the United States before, and neither parent were from the same culture either. Yet he and all of his siblings identify as American. They don't identify as Peruvian. They don't identify as Norwegian. Sure, there's some of that stuff, but they're primarily American, first and foremost. Just like Alan, you can say he's Belarusian. That's why it sounds like, but that kind of doesn't really matter. He's American, right? His mother is Belarusian. He is American. I myself, I have a mother from Israel, but that doesn't make me Israeli. I was born and raised Norwegian, so I cannot really relate much to, I can speak some of the language, but I'm not Israeli, like by any stretch of the imagination.
And have nationality, no problem, because your mother is Jewish.
Well, that's no, but I'm not sure what you mean about that.
I mean, you have the right of return.
If your mother
you always have identities. You always have identities that go over. There are some identities that quite easily go to the middle and disappear with the time, and there are some identities that stays quite much over. So Israeli identity or Jewish identity normally doesn't dissipate that easy. It stays quite strong, always over the top. Armenian has the same. Then you have Hispanics identity, which is almost, especially in the USA, they are there, but they are not really there. They still live in their world quite by side. They don't want to integrate most of the time. Sometimes they do, and we have loads of successful cases in the United States, especially in politics in the last years. But normally Hispanics tend to create their own world around. They don't want to lose it. Sorry for bringing that.
But your point is valid. I think you're correct.
You don't integrate, you compete. That's how you integrate into the United States, is through competing. And so Hispanics, they don't integrate.
That's quite true as well.
Immigrants will always have to cooperate with the host population in any event. So that's simply not true. But Prata, what you were saying, this has probably also a lot to do with statistical dynamics. If you have, for example, large populations that are from the very same place, they will be behaving like within their own kind of distinct community. So in Norway, for example, we have plenty of immigrants from all over the world, and we have plenty of people such as myself, which have one parent from somewhere else. But we see in those cases it won't matter. Like if you have someone who is Pakistani growing up where I was growing up, where there was few Pakistanis, that Pakistani will be very Norwegian, just like me. But if that Pakistani was born in Oslo, where we have a very large community of Pakistanis, the integration there went simply slower. And they were also having their own little community, and there was a lot of back and forth going on that. But that relates more to numbers, right? It's not necessarily like where are you from, or whatever. Like it has
and the ability for you to go up in the social scale as well. If a society is open for outside people to go up in the scale, then the integration will be easy. So that's why David is quite correct. The United States allows through competition to successful in life for you to get inside and become a real American. And this in a couple of years. Look at Elon Musk. He's not American, but he's now, nobody questions his American-cy or whatever you call it.
He's the richest African American in the world.
He's an African American.
But nobody questions anymore that he's American.
But he still wouldn't be allowed to go to an Ivy League school because the color of his skin is wrong.
Yeah, but there's not a culture like in Europe, like JS was saying. It used to be
some got that Michael Jackson
white Christian culture that you assimilated to. In the U.S., you assimilate to capitalism, free market, some level of competition, and like the reality is, most people when they move to America, they actually assimilate to African American culture because they move to urban cities, and urban cities are dominated by African Americans. So you don't assimilate to white culture. You assimilate to capitalism, free markets, the various things, the democracy, the system. But in terms of cultural norms, most
the basic
people
is European.
actually assimilate to African American culture.
But the basic is European.
No, I'm saying that's not the case.
The basis.
That most immigrants that come to the United States, including Chinese Americans, assimilate to African American culture, not European culture.
No, but the basis of that Afro-American, the basis of that Afro-American, like you're calling it, it's European, and it's much more European
the American culture is not European.
It's a new unique thing. I mean, it's not you. It's a new unique thing, and that's why America is a current multicultural experiment that may fail, it may succeed. It's up to us.
It already succeeded. There's no question. I know you guys have said several things against it. No, the U.S.
It's a continual test.
It's a continual test.
Yes, it is a continual test, and a very dangerous one, because the United States is growing their population extremely fast. This is almost extremely dangerous. They are growing like 10% each 10 years. They are now by 350. Am I correct? Guys, correct me, please. It's extreme. They grow a lot, and they don't
grow immigration. I mean,
through immigration, but that's too much.
Like Europe, the European base of America has below replacement birth rates. It's increasing through Hispanic immigration, through Asian, Arab, African immigration, and relatively, it's thank God America is one of the most larger land masses that with the population sparsity. There's a lot of issues in America, and it's very difficult to understand. And then you have what Wyatt was talking about. Well, like, can't you guys pull yourself together and make things? And it's like, well, yeah, we probably could pull ourselves together and make things.
But the problem about Americans growing so much their population, USA,
like you said, Elon Musk. Like we can't pull ourselves together to make things. We could get Elon Musk that comes to America in order to make things, but that's the nature of America.
Yeah, but the problem with Americans growing on their population is because they consume so many resources, probably even more than the Europeans. Of course, Europeans also too much. But a U.S. citizen consumes a lot of resources. This is a real dangerous for the whole world.
Hey, bro, I got a lifestyle to maintain, so get off my back.
Of course you do, but as I'm looking at you, you probably are one of the most ecological, sustainable persons on this earth. But the normal American person consumes too much resources, and this is dangerous. Also for Americans themselves, because America is pretty much a net exporter in many resources on the world. They have almost everything, but they might start wasting everything they have.
Wow.
There's another aspect, maybe what Draco or RL was saying. America controls things on paper, but like actually on the ground in terms like, okay, well, we control because the owner of the company, the owner of the patent, in the various things. But that's the main reason why China is such an adversary, because they don't respect our patent right. They don't respect our paper contractual control of these things.
Why should they?
But like Chinese control is more real, and the level of global American control, it's somewhat just on paper.
Oh, really? Let me just say something, please. I want to say something finally. America has like over 100 military bases all over the world.
1,000. 1,000.
Not 1,000.
It's like 800. It's like 800.
If you add the CIA bases, which are secret,
and
it's
these
above
military
1,000.
bases are all over the world in different countries.
Yes.
Do you think that
in China,
America is not dominating these countries where they have?
We're bankrupting ourselves to do it.
They have to spend.
We're
they
bankrupting
are not
ourselves doing it.
them.
We have to pay those people, and we can't afford to keep on doing it.
May I say something too?
No.
May I say something too?
No.
Thank you, Aral. So, someone think that when the Americans have their military base, they are not dominating this country also economically?
No.
Well, on paper, we forced them to respect our contractual
only Germany. Only Germany.
As opposed to China, who refuses to respect our patents
dominating
and our paper
countries,
contractual
but not
control.
economically. Tell me what in Europe we have as American product made in USA. Tell me. Give me
everything.
one.
Everything.
No. Give me
Where
one.
is the management?
Well,
yeah,
the car you are driving is not made in USA. The Coca-Cola you are drinking is not made in USA. It's made in a factory here in Europe.
Oh, really?
The Big Mac you are eating.
Please,
McDonald's. No,
let's not be so mad. Let's not be so mad about the. Let's not be so mad about American.
Where world commodities traded through? They're still traded through the New York Commodities Exchange. Even in Europe, the prices on world commodities are largely set in the United States. I mean, it's like a paper control that the U.S. has. In Europe, it might be the smallest, but even in Europe, things like commodity prices are largely set in the U.S.
So if I would be Chinese, I told you, I already told. If I would be Chinese, I will attack America tomorrow.
You are not Chinese.
Let Wyatt go. Let Wyatt go. Let Wyatt go.
Stop. First, we have gone one big round. Come back to the same point of China should attack United States tomorrow. No, we should change topic.